Hi, everybody. I'll be with you in a minute. As soon as I do a little sharing, please hang around for just a little bit. Hi, Steve. Hi, Dolores. Nice to see you both. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Kay. Hi, Cheyenne. Hi, Barbara. Nice to see you all. Okay, I'm just about done with my sharing. Just one more. And please do share, share, share as much as you can. I'll certainly appreciate it. Action for Assange. Yeah. Do subscribe to that. That looks like a good one. Hi, Carol Coutinho. Nice to see you. And hi, Lana. Great to see you. There were protests in 70 cities. Mm. Okay. Hello. Hello. How's my sound right now, everybody? Thank you all for coming tonight. So, Steve says that Graham Elwood has the best live stream from Los Angeles. And Steve wants us to subscribe to YouTube Action for Assange. I think that's a real good idea. Kay says poor Assange will be dead before he gets free. Maybe Chelsea too. Damn sad. Not just damn sad, it should make us damned angry. Because they've been defending us. And we haven't been doing nearly enough for them. Thank you, Barbara. Steve says canvassing for Bernie today, fun. Well, that's great, Steve. Okay. We're in the soup now. What I feared from the beginning of the Trump administration, and the reason why I've harped on impeachment and why I keep on doing so, is because there was always a danger of something like this happening since Trump got to the presidency. He was always unpredictable and rather irrational. And we just had no way of trusting that he would do anything reasonable when it came to a tight situation involving the military. Of course, he ran as a little more of an anti war candidate than Hillary Clinton did. But what he said during the campaign and what he does, what he has done since he came to the presidency, they're simply two different things. He lies all the time, he acts on impulse, he has extremely poor background knowledge of all sorts of things. He doesn't know how to conciliate people and how to deal with people. And he doesn't seem to value human life. So I always thought there was a grave danger that he would get us into a situation like this. Now, let me be perfectly clear. Okay. I sound like a politician now, right? Let me be perfectly clear. Okay. So be it. What Trump did, what he did in Iran, what he did by killing Qasim and the head of one of the militias, okay, in Iraq, that is just that is a violation of human rights. It's a violation of international law. Okay? It's a violation of treaties that we were a party to. And it's also unconstitutional because he did not seek the approval of Congress, and he was not authorized to take any military action with respect to Iran. He certainly was not authorized to kill a high level person from Iran who was on a diplomatic mission to Iraq at the time, and to kill him on Iraqi soil. It was illegal to attack him on Iraqi soil without the consent of the host country. He did not have that consent. He did not seek that consent. In fact, from what we now know, okay, it appears that he was asked specifically to take no hostile action against Iran on Iraqi soil. He was asked this by the government of Iraq some time ago. He nevertheless took that action, and in so doing, he violated the sovereignty of Iraq. So, Mr. Trump is completely in the wrong about this. Completely in the wrong as a matter of law, completely in the wrong as a matter of the ethics and morality of the situation, and completely in the wrong from the standpoint of the national interest of the United States. We have to recognize that. We have to recognize that this is not only an extremely risky move, but it was an act of war. It was an act of war against Iran, against another sovereign state. We are virtually at war with Iran now. And we are at war as a result of the actions of the President of the United States. We must now put a stop to the war. How can we do that? We can do it, first of all, by pressuring our congresspeople in any way we can. In any way we can, to deny him the authorization of Congress to continue to prosecute the war against Iran, to continue to attack Iran, or to have our military attacked. We can make it known to our congresspeople that we are opposed to this war, and if they don't put a stop to it, that we will vote them out. We will vote them out in the fall, that their careers will be ended. That their careers will be ended. This is something we must do. It is one of the things we can do. But apart from that, apart from getting the Congress to block any further actions by Trump, there is also the matter of impeachment. There is the matter of impeachment. Were the Senate to convict Donald Trump on the impeachment charges, were they to convict him tomorrow, at the point of the conviction, he would no longer be the President of the United States. I think the proper course of action is for Nancy Pelosi to add another article of impeachment. Which should be another article calling Trump out for violations of the Constitution, okay, and for abuse, okay, of power over the actions he has taken against Iran and General Suleiman. Now, I'm not going to say that General Suleiman was an angel. But he was someone who was defending his own country and who was doing the kinds of things in international relations that our generals and our high officials do every day. He wasn't doing anything different. He was particularly good at his job. He was a hero in Iran. He did us also a number of good turns when it came to fighting al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, ISIS. He was perhaps the most effective enemy of ISIS in the world. And in that respect, he was working towards one of the goals of the United States. I will say that about him. But in a way, his character, or whether he is evil or whether he is not evil, that is irrelevant. What is relevant is that what Trump did exceeded the powers of the presidency. Exceeded the powers of the presidency. It was another impeachable offense. He should immediately be impeached by the House for it. It doesn't matter whether there are any Republican votes to support impeachment or not. We should take care of that on our end by pressuring our Congress people. But the important thing is that there quickly should be added another article of impeachment. based on this issue. And while they're at it, they should add another article on the emoluments clause, on his violation of foreign emoluments and also domestic emoluments. That should be done tomorrow. I guess it can't be at Sunday. That should be done on Monday. And the day after that, those articles of impeachment should be sent to the Senate. And then we need to camp out in Washington, D.C., outside the Senate, until this man is removed from office. The last thing we need now is to pursue a war against Iran. We have work to do here. We have work to do. We have work to do on the Green New Deal. We have work to do on Medicare for All. We have work to do on numberless important but domestic issues. We have work to do in fixing the ruinous, imperialistic foreign policy we have been following for too long. We cannot let things go on any further. We have to get to our real work and put aside these particular distractions. It's pretty obvious that what Trump is doing here was trying to wag the dog. We need to understand, however, more broadly, what the situation in Iraq currently is right now. In describing that situation, I'm going to take the point of view of the Iraqi protesters who, since October 1st, have been protesting the government there for change. During this period of time, since October 1st, their daily demonstrations have been met with resistance from the government. There have been 500 fatalities among the protesters. 25,000 people have been wounded. These are protesters who are young people. These are protesters who have a secular program. They are neither representative of the Shiites, the paramilitary Shiite forces. What they are people calling for a secular democracy, for religious freedom, for a decent economy, for the restoration of Iraqi sovereignty, which they believe has been taken from them by the United States and by Iran. They view the United States, and Iran as fighting over the bones of Iraq and shedding Iraqi blood while they do that. They want both sides out of Iraq. Their demonstrations have brought some success. A change in government is going on in Iraq actually right now. It's moving down the road. But there hasn't been time to fully constitute a new election commission and hold an election in Iraq. But the movement of the protesters has created a situation which has alarmed Iran and also alarmed the U.S. In other words, both of the third parties in Iraq have been alarmed by the protest movement, because the success of the protest movement would mean the reestablishment of a sovereign Iraq. That's not something that Iran wants to see. They want an Iraq which is basically controlled by Iranian influence. We want an Iraq which is under our thumb. That's what's been going on there. That's what's at the heart of this. Why was Qasem Soleimani in Iraq? He was in Iraq to confer with the Shiite militias. He was in Iraq to confer with government officials. He was in Iraq to make the point of view of Iran known to those forces in Iraq. And he was in Iraq undoubtedly to shore up the role of the Shiite paramilitary groups. That's why he was in the company of Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis, who's a senior militia commander in Iraq. Who had been active in the war against the Islamic State. He was also killed in the U.S. airstrike. There was some ambiguity, evidently, at first, whether the airstrike was from a bomb or from a drone. It seems to have been a drone, okay, according to The Guardian. We droned Qasem. We used our superior technological capability to find him and to drone him. So, of course, needless to say, what Trump did is very dangerous and begs for a further escalation by the Iranians. But I am not here to talk about the likelihood, okay, of escalation. What I am here to talking about is the importance of Congress reestablishing its control over foreign adventures, over foreign wars, According to the Constitution, our Congress is supposed to be responsible for the declarations of war. Our Congress is supposed to be responsible for authorizing wars. Our Congress is supposed to be responsible for funding wars. It has no business delegating those powers to the executive branch of the government. No business at all. It needs to take back congressional sovereignty. It needs to take back its power. It needs to take back its responsibilities under the Constitution of the United States. Until that happens, we have the very dangerous situation of a presidency that has much too much power. We cannot go on as a democracy that way. If we go on that way, it will be the end of us. So what must the Congress do? What the Congress must do is to take back its power over war making right now. Stop the funding of the administration efforts. Stop the funding of the administration efforts. Right now. Stop it within the next few days. But also within the next few days. It is so important that we activate and expand impeachment again and get this president out before he can do any more damage. Before he can do any more damage to other people. I want you to consider the following. What is the end game in the Middle East? What is the government of the United States trying to do? Are we trying to destroy Iran as a viable state? Is that what we have in mind? Are we trying to destroy Syria as a viable state? Are we trying to create a sea of chaos from the borders of Israel to the eastern borders of Iran? What are we trying to do there? What is our end game? Do we want to occupy the whole region? Is that what we're about? Is that in the national interest of the United States? Why are we doing this to Iran? Okay, now, I can understand why we might want to see an Iraq, which is again sovereign, because there are probably more than 20 million people in Iraq who want that, and who would want to assert their right to sovereignty. They don't want to be under the heel of Iran. They don't want to be under the heel of the United States. They want to be an independent state, and a viable independent state, where people have a decent life. We have done more than anyone else to destroy all the Iraqi institutions of government, with virtually no plan to reconstruct those institutions. We have followed the internal damage that was done to Iraq by Saddam Hussein with our own brand of internal damage, destroying one Iraqi institution after another until there are just these religious and ethnic groupings fighting among themselves, creating a chaos which allows, of course, the Iranians to dominate a certain segment of Iraq and ourselves to remain in Iraq. One possible consequence of this latest intervention there, one possible consequence is that finally the Iraqis simply order us out. Then the question is, will we go? We need Congress to take control, stop Trump from prosecuting the war there, and then we need the Congress to force the administration to obey the Iraqi regime if they call on us to go. That is what we need to do. How can we get Congress to do that? Only through our constant pressure every single day. Only through our efforts to persuade, to force our Congresspeople to join with other Congresspeople to take control, to deny the resources to fight the war to the executive branch. And while we're doing that, to evict Mr. Trump out of the presidency for his violations of the Constitution, his abuses of power, his obstructions of justice, his obstruction of the Congress. We need to impeach him post haste. Each additional day is one day too long. Is one day too long. What I want you to think about again is the end game. If the end game is not the destruction and subjugation of Iran and the occupation of Iran, then what is it? Why did Trump kill the nuclear deal with Iran? Why did he kill the negotiations to end the economic sanctions and bring peace between our two nations? What did he expect to accomplish? What is his end game there? What is the end game of the neocons? What are they looking for? What does John Bolton want? What does he want the subjugation of Venezuela for? What did he want the Bolivian coup for? What does he want the subjugation of Iran for? What are they about? What are they trying to do? How is it in the interest of the United States to have chaos through the whole Middle East? Now, it may be in the narrow interests of Israel, as some people in Israel see that interest. Sometimes I think what Israel is doing is following a foreign policy of simply, well, the more chaos we can create in the rest of the Middle East, the longer we can hang on. The longer we can hang on to our foothold in the Middle East. That is not a foreign policy that is in the Israeli interest. Now, I am not an Israeli and I cannot speak for them, but I have relatives there. And I certainly do not want to see the destruction of Israel. But at the same time, I have to say that their foreign policy since the 1970s has been predominantly misguided all of the way. It has been a suicidal foreign policy with no end game other than the destruction of everybody in sight. And at this point, we must ask this administration what it is they have in mind. What kind of world are they trying to create? And then we have to ask ourselves as Americans, is this the kind of world that we want? Is this the kind of world we want America to create? Is this the kind of world that Americans want to live in? We have to come to realize we cannot dominate the world. We cannot. We are not enough of the world to dominate it. We are not enough of the world to deserve to dominate it. We are a nation among many nations. Yes, we are a big nation, though not the biggest when it comes to population, not the biggest when it comes to area. We are a nation. We are an important nation. We can make great contributions to the development of human civilization. But we have to do that as one among many nations, working collaboratively with others for the best interests of all and for the best interests of the planet. That is the only way that we're going to be able to create the world we want to live in. That we can create a world that we can be proud of. We don't want to create the kind of world that Trump evidently wants to create. We don't want to create a government in which the executive constantly violates the Constitution. We don't want a dictator. We want a democracy where everybody's rights are respected and where the law applies to everybody. We have to see to it that the law is now applied to Donald Trump. And we need to start with his impeachment and his removal from office. And we need to start with Congress removing his powers to prosecute this war of choice that he has now started. Okay, spoken my piece for today. I'm going to consider your comments in just a moment. Please remember to share, like, and subscribe this video when it goes up, okay, at YouTube, and to share and like it on Facebook. And please become a patron at www.patreon.com/Joe_Firestone. I would appreciate whatever help that you can give. Now, let me get back to your comments. Rob Rivera is joined. Hi, Rob. Alan Scott. Hi, Alan. I see Cheyenne has a lot of comments for me today. I'll run down those in just a minute. Kay has a lot of comments, as always. Steve Wolfbrandt. I see everybody is quite active today. That's very good. You know I really like it when you're very active. Kay says, yes, I agree. We should be angry. Carol Coutinho says hi. And Joanne Olenhos Ricadio has joined us. Hi, Joanne. Nice to see you. Steve says, all hell could very well break loose. Yes, indeed. Okay, it could. But it is more likely that it will be the slow hell of occasional well-directed bombings and acts which are designed to remove our capability in the Middle East and to destroy our presence there. Crystal Folk has joined. Steve Wolfbrand said, there will be consequences and repercussions. I assure you, yes, I am expecting them. But that is not why I am so anxious to stop this war and to remove Mr. Trump. The reason why I want to do this is that this war that he has started is an unjust war. It is an unjust war. He had no right to start it. It is illegal. It is immoral. It is inhuman. It is a crime against humanity. Kay says World War III has been the most trending from what I've heard. I don't think this is going to develop into World War III. The only way it will is if those who oppose the war continue to show the cowardice that they have been showing for so many months. I think the people of all nations have to stand up against what the Trump government has done in Iran. I think the people of Europe need to show their displeasure by forcing the governments of Europe to end the sanctions. What should happen in retaliation for this by Trump is for the world to end collaboration with the United States on sanctions against Iran. And Lana points out that General Suleiman was a hero in the Middle East. He was their Patton or MacArthur. This will have consequences. He was even more than that, because he was more than a general. He was a high official in their government, okay, as well. And he was often spoke of as a possible successor to the presidency. He claimed that he would never become the president because he wasn't a politician and he didn't want that kind of job. But he had the kind of support for the presidency that someone like Dwight Eisenhower had in the United States before he became the president, or that Colin Powell had before he decided not to run here. So General Suleiman was more than a general. He was a political hero too, and a man of great influence in the politics of Iraq. Steve says this is how the First World War got started. Yes, it got started through an assassination. But that's not the only war that got started in that way, okay, through an assassin. There's an article by Major by Major Danny Sturson today in Truth Dig that reminds us of the 3 or 4 historical wars. I think there were 4 of them that was started by killings, okay, of individuals, including World War One, of course. Lana agrees Congress needs to stop him from continuing the effort. Russ Gorman is here. Hi, Russ. Good to see you. Kay says, Bernie and Ro Khanna are trying to pass a bill, but not holding my breath on that. I love them both for trying, though. And also Tim Kaine, even, is trying to pass a resolution to stop Trump from going any further. What Tim Kaine did specifically was, and you know, if Tim Kaine is backing it, it must be obvious to everyone. Trump is rattling more sabers. He is now saying that we are prepared to strike 52 Iranian sites. Tim Kaine has filed a war powers resolution to stop Trump from stumbling into a war with Iran. I think he's already stumbled into it by some accounts. I just filed a resolution to prevent Trump from starting a war with Iran. The president wants to pretend the Congress doesn't exist, but it's our clear constitutional duty to debate and vote before allowing him to rush into an unnecessary war. It says Congress must step in. We owe it to our service members to have a debate and vote about whether or not it's in our national interest to engage in another war in the Middle East. The Senate is obligated to vote on the legislation because those kinds of resolutions are privileged. It's being co-sponsored by Dick Durbin, who's a Democrat, okay, from Illinois. So Kaine is calling for a resolution and for a vote on a resolution and for a discussion. And when you couple that with what Bernie and Roe are doing, those 2 things would provide the basis for stopping Donald Trump. Hopefully that will go on in Congress this week. But also, impeachment has to get moving again. Cheyenne says, I want the veterans to show up in uniform for protests. And Russ says, I'm pretty sick of the endless wars, the empire BS. Yeah, me too. Okay, I don't want our country to be an empire. We've created, okay, an empire. We got to stop it. There's no way we should be, okay, an imperial power. That is not the vision for a United States that we can all be proud of. Steve says, share this so Doc gets more audience. Thank you, Steve. Cheyenne says, Bill Clinton pulled the same thing during the impeachment. Okay, he attacked Iraq. Yeah, he attacked Iraq, but then he withdrew. Okay, in other words, he wasn't really trying to start a war, but yes, he did. There was a lot of talk of the there was a lot of talk about the wag the dog scenario during Clinton's time. And there was a movie about it. So, of course, Trump heard about it. So he thought, well, he's going to wag the dog too. So Trump gets removed and we get Pence. What's accomplished? What's accomplished is that Pence would never have made this particular decision to kill General Suleiman. How do I know that? Because all the advisors of Donald Trump told him not to do that. That was a very far out option on his list, okay, of options. And Pence doesn't select very far out options. That's not who Pence is. He's a creature of the Congress. He's hidebound. And he may be a religious fanatic. But he's not somebody who risks everything on a roll of the dice. That's Trump. It's not Pence. What's accomplished, okay, by getting Pence is that we don't have someone capable of doing crazy things internationally in the office. We probably don't even have someone who would listen to John Bolton, but I wouldn't swear to that. Cheyenne says, I'm a draft counselor. Well, I didn't but know that, Cheyenne. I'm sure that's very valuable work and very important work. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get back to where I was in the list of comments. There we go. Steve said, Israel and Saudi Arabia are behind this, methinks. Trump is a puppet. I don't know if I'd call Trump a puppet, but in this case, I think he probably was influenced by Israel and by Saudi, and that he wasn't following the interests of the United States in this. The Cheyenne says the Times of Israel has reported a deal that Bibi and Trump have made, okay, to attack Iran. Kay said she was surprised that got reported. Susan Eldridge has joined. Steve says, okay, I believe the Iraqi parliament will vote on Monday to expel all U.S. troops. Should be interesting. I hope it does. Kay says we should never have gone into Iraq. Bush and Cheney led us into that, yes. And in doing so, and in doing the things they did in Iraq, they committed many war crimes. And when Pelosi got into office in 2007, she let them off the hook. And she let Bush off the hook for an impeachment that could have happened at that point. Cheyenne points out the Shiite community outside Santa Fe, every summer they have a prayer peace day. The year I went, Arlo Guthrie was guest speaker. And Kay says Nancy Pelosi is a corporate-owned wimp. SMH. Hope she gets voted out. And Cheyenne says Pelosi out, Buttar in. Donate. Yeah, Buttar is great. I very much want to see him in. Cheyenne said, my best friend was killed in the Vietnam War. He wanted to marry me when he got home. He never came home alive. I'm sorry to hear that, Cheyenne. Cheyenne says war is hell. Steve says, who was advising this nut Trump? He couldn't find Iraq on a map. Is it BBN? Well, if it's BBN, it could be going through Jared Kushner, his son-in-law. When Bibi first came to the United States, he stayed with Kushner's family. And he shared a bedroom with Jared Kushner for a while. Just a little story. Cheyenne says, ask Tulsi about that. She and Bernie are working hard in Congress. And Steve says, Doc, if we don't have the votes in the Senate, removal of Trump is not possible. Yes. Okay. I know that it's not possible, that if we don't have the votes, okay, it's not possible. On the other hand, you don't know if you have the votes until you try to get those votes. It's up to us to place our senators under pressure to camp out in the Senate to try to undermine the authority of Mitch McConnell and get those votes. Get those votes. We have 20 votes to get. Stranger things have happened. This is a terrible thing that Trump has just done. And his threat now to hit 52 Iranian sites. It's crazy. Kay says, I was protesting in Cleveland, Ohio back in the Vietnam days. Many of my friends came back in a box, and many who didn't wish they had. Lives were lost, okay, in many ways. Cheyenne said, same here. Kay rejoined. Kay said, I married my ex to try to keep him out of the draft at age 16. On his 18th birthday. Rob Rivera has joined, and Alan Scott has joined. Kay said it was the biggest mistake in my life, but I did it for the right reason. Steve said, nice rant. We're all frustrated. Rob said, we must stop this. He's a threat, and if they threaten us, we must respond. Trying to get these comments to scroll, folks. I think I'm keeping my nose above the horizon today. Thank you, Steve. And Rob Rivera says, we must not stop this. He's a threat, and if they threaten us, we must respond, especially with the possibility of a looming recession. We must open new markets, invest in the military. We need to start a war to save our economy. We must do what we need to do. I may make it a moral view, but morally at times needs to be set aside, especially if we need to save our economy. Rob! Come on, Rob. Come on. We know you better than that. Dale Weaver has joined. Steve Wolfbrand says, Doc, can we do occasional one-time donations without going through Patreon? Well, there's a way to do one-times through Patreon. What you do is you do your one-time, okay, and then after it's done, you cancel it. But Steve, if you send me your email address online, then I'll send you my address, okay, and you can send me a check, okay, if you like. That would probably be the simplest way to do it. And Cheyenne says, no nuclear war. Uh, Iran's allies have nukes. Yes, they do. Some of Iran's allies do have nukes. Cheyenne says, okay, that Iran is in deep grief. Kay says, just what Mother Earth needs on top of all the other pollution. Australia is on fire everywhere. Cheyenne says they are standing up. Some are practicing warfare drills. Yeah, they got to get that out of their system. They need some outlet. They're grieving, they're angry, and they're justified in that anger. Steve says all sanctions everywhere should be lifted. They're acts of war and tools of empire. Yes, Steve, I agree. Cheyenne says sanctions, a slow motion war, extremely cruel. Rob says it seems like Trump did this to distract from impeachment and betting on this as a political strategy in the hopes of winning re-election. What is more disgusting is that the Democrats' response was Trump should have consulted them before committing a war. committing a war crime. My perspective is, so what? Are you telling me you will allow this? How is this not, okay, an impeachable offense? Why aren't the Democrats bringing this up? I think that maybe Bernie, Kay, and Elizabeth are going to bring it up. Either way, I'm sure behind the scenes the Democrats are okay with this as their way of injecting money into the economy from failing, and both Democrats and Republicans think starting wars is the only way. Let's hope that you're not right, Rob. And Cheyenne says, Rob, Clinton did the same thing. New York Times reported it. Cheyenne says Clinton was trying to stall his impeachment, Joe, just like Trump. Yeah, he was trying to stall his impeachment. But there's a big difference between Trump and Clinton in that sense. Uh, Specifically, Clinton was very popular, okay, at this point, and the Republicans did not have the votes to convict him, but nowhere near the votes to convict him. Yeah, they could impeach him because they controlled the House, but uh, there was no way they would ever be able to get the Senate because Clinton's approval ratings were up in the 50s, close to 60% at the time. Lana said, I do think Trump took some advice from Netanyahu on that. And Cheyenne says, we don't know what Pence will do. They're all puppets for the MIC. Yeah, but I'm not sure the military industrial complex wants a war with Iran. That might be too risky. Cheyenne says they've been colluding. And she says that's public info now. Yeah, I think it is public info. It's clear that they have been colluding and colluding with the Saudis. Kay says, I saw a tweet by Pence today trying to link this mess to 9/11. Yeah, what bullshit. Cheyenne points out BB is being investigated by The Hague. Cheyenne says, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm looking at my guillotine. Be right back. Kay says GOP wants Trump to be a dictator so they can be a dictator's tool. Their fondest wish. Steve says Bernie must be elected. I will canvass, donate, march, rally, whatever I have to do. This must happen. Kay says, but if he isn't, I might as well be dead. He's the only hope I have in my life. Steve Day has joined, and and Randolph Hedgebeth is here. Hi, Randolph. You should say Randy. And Steve Wolfbrand says, okay, I'll DM my email. I can send a check occasionally. I don't like but Patreon. I can't make it work. I'm stupid. No, you're not. Probably their interface is stupid. In fact, I think it is too. It took me a while, okay, to discover that someone could actually make a one-time donation. actually through Patreon. And Randy has now joined. Okay, any more comments or questions? I think I've caught up to you guys. I don't see any new ones. I think it's valuable to recognize that both the United States and also Iran are kind of disturbed at the civil unrest that has been occurring in Iraq. And both are a little disturbed by the possibility, okay, that Iraq may try to take back its sovereignty. Giant says, it's okay to be techie stupid. I am too. There's techie smart and techie stupid, and there's just not having enough a techie experience. I suspect that it's the latter. He says, I try not to put my bank act online, too many hacks. Yes, I agree. Steve says, good night. Good show. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being active, making comments, asking questions. Okay, that's all very good. Now let's go out there and stop the war. Cheyenne says, gotta go clean the dust off my guillotine. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much again. Steve says, I'm the last of the boomers. Steve, I think you're way too young to be a boomer. But as it happens, I'm a pre boomer. I was born in 1939. Anyway, good night to the last of the boomers and to everyone else. And have a great day tomorrow. I'll see you Monday.